Known as Faux Rock for his ferocious hitting style, David Fulcher spent 8 years brightly in the spotlight of the NFL. We embrace them, cheer for them. They are heroes in our eyes. Yet when their time in the spotlight ends, many go on to do the most important work of their lives. They go into overtime. Welcome to Overtime, life after the spotlight with NFL All-Pro David Fulcher and his co-host, national award-winning speaker David Coleman, exclusively on the Bootleggers Music Group Radio.
And I thought, well, I hope I've got it because I'm just going to be myself, and that's what I did.
Well, Coach, I know the title of our show here is Overtime, Life After the Spotlight. And I've been knowing you for a very, very long time, play a little golf with you, speak to you every now and then. Since, once again, this is a tough one because I've never known you to be in or out of the spotlight. You just did your job. But now that you're not really into football and maybe, a little quiet, playing golf, just trying to be yourself. When you finished your last coaching job and you woke up that next morning and said to yourself, I'm not going into the office, what does that look like? And how did you feel when you knew that the spotlight was gone?
Well, fortunately, and this is an interesting subject because the NFL for a long time didn't do anything to help their players. But it became apparent that bridge from playing and being on the field and being a star, if you will, but a recognized personality in the community, and to being out on the street and hunting for a job, it's traumatic. And when you're playing, and David, I'm sure that you went through a similar situation. You get used to, you get so confident in because of what you're doing, you're pretty good at it, or you wouldn't keep your job, and you're secure, and all at once you get up one day and that job's over and it's gone, and now you say, well, what are my skills? Where am I going to? And it's I wouldn't call it a trauma thing, and not traumatic, but it's a sobering thing. And all people feel it, I think. Any of us, fortunately, in the coaching profession, as you go along, someone's going to tell you that your key doesn't any longer fit the door. We don't need you, and it becomes part of the process of that being your career. And in a way, athletically, when you're playing, that someday a guy is going to say to you, you're not making the team. We're going in a different direction. But it's out there. But when the day comes, like you're saying, and you don't have a job, you have to make some man-to-man talk with yourself. Well, what's next? And I think life is that way. Life puts obstacles in our paths. We all have to deal with them. Life is a series of ups and downs. Even when it's going good, you're going to have some tough days. And the sooner that you can condition yourself into being your best person, dealing with the facts that you're facing. And I would often take a little piece of paper and split it down the middle with the pluses and minuses, and I'm trying to make lifetime decisions. In other words, what college are you going to go to? What team do you want to play for? And I would try to balance it out and look at it. Well, when you reach a bridging point in your life, particularly if you're a professional athlete that you cannot possibly go through for the rest of your life, it's good to look at the good and the bad of what's next, because there hopefully is a next coming. I would say this, where I started to go with this when we first started talking about it. The National Football League and the Players Association and the union, if you will, Players Union, they've invested quite a bit of capital assets in helping these guys that are going through these periods of their lives. And most of them, do fine, but some don't. And now there is a place that they can contact and get some help, which is, and they've done a tremendous amount of good with that over the years. I didn't get to the stage that I needed to have, but I had some days where I thought, now, this ain't going exactly the way I figured it would go. But I think if you understand individually, the sun does not shine on the same dog every day, and you just have to go through your ups and down periods, and it's a part of everyday living. And the closer you can come to your same demeanor to the people around you that are depending on you, because there's going to be people depending on you as you go through your life, the better you're going to be able to deal with these situations. And I've always held this little thought in the back of my head. When the Lord shuts one door on you, he always opens another.
Yes.
And I believe that. And if you'll just stay productive and let's face it, you just got to tighten up your belt and get through some tough days. It will work out for the best. And in the end, you'll be judged as what kind of person you are, not how many games you won or how many passes you intercepted.
It's just awesome. It's just awesome.
But, Coach, I know Dave's got a few questions there, man. And I've always said it that I am so blessed, one, to know you. And I always tell people the story that when I was at Arizona State, it was Willie Shaw. When I came to the NFL, it was Dick LeBeau. And then the guy that raised me from a toddler to 18 was Henry Fulcher. Those three guys in my lives, man, gave me an opportunity to be the person I am today. And it has nothing to do with my color, has nothing to do with my nationality, it has nothing to do with where I come from. It's just that I've surrounded myself with people who are very positive people. And when I speak of you, Willie Shaw, and my dad, I speak of three fathers. They gave me an opportunity to be the man that I am today. And my D square, if you got a question for Coach, man, go ahead and throw it at him.
Coach, if you had any idea how often David Fulcher talks about you when we're just doing whatever we are in life, and I know that you have great reverence for each other back and forth, but if you have a fan club, I think David's president.
Let me thank you, David. And I, like I said, when I became a coach, I said I want to treat my players the way I wanted to be treated. And as a result, I get the response from my players that I just got from David. So I feel undoubtedly that I chose the right profession, and that I was totally blessed to have some sense of judgment because I did have some input as to the guys that I was going to coach in the professional league. And I chose wisely in most cases, and was fortunate enough that the team would draft those guys. And to me, I don't. That's why coaching at high school would have been fine for me, to get that kind of response from someone you worked with. And all I ever wanted to do was help David be a better player so he could provide more for his family, so he could provide for himself, to have a good living, to have the financial wherewithal to have a good life. And that's what I try to do. But once a guy, and like David's talking right there with his other two male influences in his life, once you understand that guy's for you, he's not against you, you're going to be, to some extent, very much indebted to him. And I get at Christmas time and things like that, I get players even before David that will call me and just, how you doing, coach? And we really miss you. And to me, there's no amount of money in the world that can equal that for making you think, I went the right way, And
It's awesome,
David,
Coach.
whatever you think that I did for you, I guarantee you, young man, you did 1,000 times more for me. The way you played and the example that you set and the way you led your teammates. I'm the one who benefited in our relationship, pal.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Coach, I have to ask you this question, or I'm going to have to hear about it from David for the rest of our existence, as long as we're working together and doing these things. But it was one of our golf tournaments for charity that we were playing in. You hit about a 30-foot putt in for eagle that helped our team, and we're driving in the cart, and I hear David Fulcher go, "But doggone, he pulled me out on third downs. He pulled me out on third downs." David talks about that when he first got into the league, might have been a rookie, that he would be all over the field, but you'd have to pull him out on third downs. Do you remember that?
I don't remember ever having to pull David off the.
There you go,
field,
David.
to be honest with you. But if I did, it was only a judgment that I made that was best for the whole team. And any decision that I ever made as a defensive coach was best for our defense. And I wish I could say that every time I made a decision, it was the right one. But if I took David out of a third down situation, that's not the right decision. So
Coach, I
I've
think
never,
your answer right there saved him some time in front of a psychologist. So good enough for right there.
yeah,
Right.
Well,
well,
I think with Coach, and I can remember that there were situations, you know, David, the guy that Coach brings to the line of scrimmage, putting another linebacker at the line of scrimmage for running plays, and then bringing Ray Horton or Bussy in for, third down and long, because of those guys are obviously a little bit smaller than me, and definitely a little bit faster. But I remember, as a player, players get frustrated. You don't want to come out of the game. I never took it out on anybody. I never got upset. I wondered, I think I could play third downs, Coach. I think I can do that. I can go back to our Super Bowl. And this is a long time ago. So I'm asking Coach some crazy things back on Super Bowl. But the sack I had on Joe Montana, I came to the sideline and I told Coach, I said, "Hey, Coach, every time I get up there and I'm choking that tight end, I get on top of him, he always blocks down." I said, "Coach, I'm just gonna come off his backside, and I think I can get Joe." And I remember Coach telling me, if you do that, we're gonna look good. You got to make the play. If that's what you see, go get it. And I think that's where, as a player, you not only do you believe in the system that we're running, but you have a trust factor in your coach. He trusts me enough to do something outside of the norm. And as long as I get my job done, it's okay. And lo and behold, man, I sacked Montana in that Super Bowl. And all I wanted to do was run over and grab LeBeau and say, "I told you, Coach, I knew it was going to work, and you had confidence in me." And I think that's where the trust factor comes in daily when you're a player and you're playing for a coach that you believe is going to put you in the right position to make plays.
well, I do remember that incident very, very well. And I always, maybe at that stage of my coaching, I hadn't developed that ability to give the freedom to a player on the field, although I took it plenty of times when I was playing. And again, I tried to coach the way that I played. And I listen to my players because they're on the field. And if they tell me, "Hey, this is what I see," I know that's what's happening because he's out there. And I would make decisions. The longer I coached, the more I did. But part of that was the zone blitz and the evolution of the zone blitz, and having a player like David who could blitz tremendously well, as good or better than many linebackers, and still hold up in other areas of the defense. It gave us flexibility in what to do. I'm sure of this. If you and I had been together just a little bit later in my career, David, you'd have never come off the field. I promise you that.
I do have a question now. You said it. I want to make sure I get this clear. Zone blitz. Was that zone blitz started in Cincinnati? Was it evolved in Cincinnati? Did you bring that here in Cincinnati before you?
I did not bring it to Cincinnati. No, I was always a big studier in the off season of everything that everybody did in the league. And I would look at statistically the teams that had the most success. and I would look at every game that they played defensively. And sometimes I would just see that it was strictly a condition of tremendously superior personnel. But often it would be a scheme contribution to what they were doing. And there was a coach, Bill Arnsparker, who has an Ohio background, actually. He was a great coach, and he was the defensive coach when the only NFL undefeated championship team that's ever been with the Miami Dolphins. And I looked at quite a bit of his defense, and he had the teams didn't have very sophisticated pass protections in those days. And he would look at their pass protection, and he evolved a couple of ways to get a linebacker in on the back and then drop the other linebacker back into a zone area. And it was very effective. And I was scouting, working for the Bengals and scouting players. And Bill was actually was the athletic director, I think, at the University of Florida at this time. And I always stopped to see guys that I knew like that, and I knew Bill a little bit. And I told him that I had looked at his film, and that I really liked the way that he gave certain types of pass protections a lot of problem. And Bill Arnsparger said to me, he said, Dick, I was looking for a safer way to blitz. The teams, the West Coast, Bill Walsh and those guys, the run and shoot, they had evolved certain reads. Whenever a safety blitz, boom, they would go break off a route with a tight end, and the other safety coming over never had a chance to get him. And they had the answers to the zero blitzes that were what people had done since really the beginning of pressure football. And Bill said I was looking for a safer way to blitz, because if they picked up all the guys blitz and then a max blitz, and the corner slipped or the safety went the wrong way on his coverage, it was a 60, 70-yard play. And I was a statistics guy, and I noticed that the most productive plays that we had were pressure defenses, where we were blitzing and we caused interceptions, caused fumble, caused negative plays. And then I also noticed that the deficit plays that we had that we got hit the hardest were max blitzes. And I said, let's see if there isn't a way to marry the pressure without the complete no free safety anywhere. So if you remember in the zone blitzes, we always kept a free safety lurking around back there somewhere, or in Fulcher 23 stay, we trapped around you, but we had a safety over the top and one in the flat then, where we would try to lure them into this automatic break-off pass. So for every cause, there is a reaction, and this was a reaction to the run and shoot passes and to the throwing game that was taking over pro football at that time. So you guys were pretty much the drawing board for the fire zones. And I must say there were several times that I went off the diving board into an empty pool, and I asked you guys to do some things, but it's always on the practice field. I wasn't going to turn you loose in the game till we had a reasonable chance of being successful. But the first one that we ran was Fulcher 23 stay. And you came off the closed end of the formation, and Ray Griffin intercepted the breakout pass and ran 45 yards for a touchdown. And I said to myself, this is going to work, you know. But that's anybody that knows me knows that it all started in Cincinnati, and that the first one was the Fulcher 23 stay. That was the name of the defense.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about
You
that?
know what? And the funny thing about it is I get to I see Tomlin in Pittsburgh when they come to Cincinnati. I see all these coaches that were around, and they are still using Fulcher as a defensive play call. He said, hey, yeah, we still run the Fulcher. We still got that Fulcher 23. We still got it going on. And for me, as just a player who came into the league with an opportunity to have a defense called after him, It's remarkable. And I tell my kids the story all the time. You know, my daughter goes, Dad, you know, I didn't see you play, man, but you were a beast. I said, well, you know, I just did what the coach told me to do. And when you've got a defense named after you and it's still being played or run in the NFL, I give all the kudos to you, Coach, because without you trusting in me, without, you know, us putting this radio show together and asking these questions, a lot of people won't know. And our thought was, when we started this, was to, how do we go out and grab someone who has been in the spotlight, like myself, you know, and when the spotlight is over, what do you do? And that's why we love having you on here, man, and just giving us these war stories and
Well,
talking about the things that you talk about.
It's a good purpose for the show, and people are going to benefit from it. When I named defenses, I was looking for one thing, and it was in communication with my players. What would be the easiest way for them on a limited amount of words? Because we can't be in a huddle as long as the offense is and say 15 words. And I just tried to give them a front, a coverage, and a defense. And in this situation, Fulcher was to tell you that you were blitzing. 23 was we were going to play 2 coverage against regular, and if they came out in slot, we were going to play 3. So everybody knew with that series of plays, Fulcher, 23, stay, ready, break, and we were ready to go. So that was always my modus operandi for naming a defense. And you popularized it because you got a lot of sacks. And in that Super Bowl game, I might add, where you sacked Montana, the score at half was 3-3. And they had one of the best offenses that ever walked, and one of the best quarterbacks that ever walked. And they got 3 points in the first half of the game. And it was a low scoring game that we should have won anyhow, but we didn't. But you did your part, David.
Coach, I have one last question for you, as time's getting near here, and you're such a gracious man with your time, even coming on our show today. And I've had the pleasure of riding with you a few times, and I know you play in multiple events that are for charity. One of the last times we played, you shot somewhere between about a 72 and a 74, and you are not 72 or 74. How have you kept yourself so competitive, agile, fit, relevant every single day of your life still after the spotlight has ended, so to speak?
I've been blessed there also, but I think with that 72 or 74 you're talking about, that you skipped a couple of holes. I'm pretty sure.
No, I was on that course with you, Coach. I saw the numbers.
Yeah, well, I hit a couple good shots, but we had a good team that day. If you remember, we all played pretty good.
We did, but we would not have won or come close without a certain former defensive mastermind. But in seriousness, there's a lot of people watching this going, look at what he's still doing in life. Look how fit he is. Look how mentally prepared he is even for this interview today. Is there a regimen that you follow, or is there a fitness trail that you follow personally that's allowed you to stay so vibrant?
Well, I was blessed with a good gene pool. That's number one. And my ancestors, most of them, had pretty long lives. But I played 14 years in the National Football League. Now, there are not very many 182-pound guys that survive 14 years in the National Football League. But I found out or discovered, or at least was smart enough to understand, if you're going to be successful, studied a lot of physical anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, those types of subjects, and what a magical machine your body is. But it's a fine-tooth comb, man, and it's a finite balance between acidity and fluidity, and you're constantly being regulated. So, the more poison you put in your body, the less functional it's going to be. So I've kept foreign substances out of my body as much as I can.
Awesome.
I'm not saying I haven't had a few beers, but I've never abused my body.
And isn't that funny, Coach? Apple and tree. David's not a big drinker, if at all. And sometimes he and I will go out to functions together for the number of things that we do. And people look at us kind of crazy because neither one of us has a drink in our hand. We'll have a drink, but it won't be alcohol. And David's shaking his head. Be my guest, David.
Oh, no, that was, and I think it goes all the way back, man. It goes back to, like I said, when I was a kid growing up in Los Angeles, when I saw my dad, when I went to Arizona State, I saw Coach Shaw. And when I, Cincinnati Bengals, I saw Coach LeBeau. It was just a simple fact that, I've seen it, and that wasn't good for me. I was a natural guy all the way around. My drug of choice is my mama's food. You know what I mean? I was raised on that stuff, and I'm still today at soon to be 60. I'm still on my wife's food now. So I don't do anything crazy. I just, I try to do it as right as I can. Anytime I'm in a jail talking to men and women who are incarcerated, I try to go back to my childhood. I say the things that are necessary. And I always think if you're going to do it the right way, and then continue to keep being blessed by the people you hang around. And for us to have Coach LeBeau on this show, David and I do what we do. I can't wait to get back on the golf course with you, Coach. I'm going to play a little round of golf with you.
Be great.
And we've had fun, man. This was a great show. This was a great topic. This is why I do what I do. Now I want to be able to reach out and touch those who are.
And then one more answer to David's question. All things in moderation. That's where I was going. I always told my players, and you probably remember this, there's no prize in the bottom of that bottle. So don't be drinking down in there looking for it down there. There's nothing but a headache down there.
Nothing but a headache. Nothing but a headache. You're right.
All things in moderation, and the good Lord will bless you.
And it's so nice of you to join us, Coach. And I remember the first time I had a chance to meet you a few years ago, we were playing in something, and I walked away and I was talking to David, and I said, I just met the definition of class and humility.
Yes.
And once again, that's shown through today. And we don't want to take up your whole day. We appreciate your time, Coach. And thank you for sharing so many things with our listeners that they would never know and probably never think of. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
You guys are special guys, and you're doing a lot of good with this.
Thank you so much. On behalf of David Fulcher and Dick LeBeau, this is David Coleman, your co-host here on Overtime Life After the Spotlight, here on Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Once again, thanks. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Overtime with NFL All-Pro David Fulcher and co-host, award-winning speaker David Coleman on the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Be sure to catch all our shows and music by downloading our app at bootleggersmusicgroup.com. All content is published and owned by the Bootleggers Music Group, LLC, and Zasco Publishing, and may not be duplicated without prior written consent. Executive producer, Paul E. Jones.